Hello, Canada. Welcome to Soccer North. I'm your host, Andi Petrillo. And what a week it's been in Canadian soccer. The women, they hopped on a plane. They're heading to the World Cup. The men, they're in the middle of competing in the Gold Cup right now, still in the group stage. Oh, and Interim General Secretary Jason DeVos of Canada Soccer just casually dropped the word bankruptcy. You know we're talking all of that. We're also going to be speaking to the Athletic's Steph Young to talk Canadians in the NWSL. I sat down with Chelsea midfielder and Canadian international Jessie Fleming. And former national team member Jimmy Brennan joins the show for full reaction to reports that Canada Soccer is considering filing for bankruptcy. But before we get into it, you know how this goes. Let's take a look at how some of Canada's finest did this week as we get you caught up on keeping up with the Canadians. Let's get things started with some Canadian transfer news. Chloe Lacasse is on her way to Arsenal after 4 incredible years at Benfica, amassing 70 goals in 74 games. Lacasse's transfer to the Premier League Giants is imminent, with Arsenal ready to pay a record fee. She took to social media to thank the Benfica fan base for the great memories and said, "I will forever be one of you." And in NWSL news, the Washington Spirit and Gabby Carl have agreed to a new contract that will keep the Canadian fullback in Washington for another 3 seasons. The defender is enjoying a successful spell with the team and has the Spirit in the top half of the NWSL table. And members of the Canadian women's national team were in action with their club teams this weekend. In Sweden, it was Evelyn Vienne who found herself on the score sheet with Kristianstad. Vienne led the line for her side as the main forward in a 3-2 win over IFK Kalmar. Vienne is in top form, making 16 goal contributions in just 15 league games. In the NWSL, it was San Diego Wave versus OL Reign. Quinn and Jordan Huitema got the start against Wave keeper Kaylin Sheridan. It was the Reign that would open the scoring in the 8th minute. Check out this silky smooth pass by Quinn over the top of the defense with their first assist of the season into the path of Bethany Balser, who did the rest. Balser would grab her second of the game thanks to a great decoy run by Jordan Huitema that creates the room for her to do the rest. The Reign would win 2-1. with Quinn and Huitema both playing the full 90. Switching to Gabby Carl's Washington Spirit against Christine Sinclair's Portland Thorns. But it was American Sophia Smith who stole the show, scoring not 1, not 2, but 3 goals to help the Thorns emerge victorious with a 4-2 win over the Washington Spirit. The Thorns now sit at the top of the table, and the combination of Sinclair and Smith is becoming something to watch. But hey, the Canadian is hoping she cools off before the World Cup.
Do you two want to play each other in the World Cup?
Maybe not if she's in the form that she was in tonight. Maybe she can just chill out a little bit.
Canadian captain Christine Sinclair is having another tremendous season with the Thorns. The ageless wonder is still contributing with 3 goals in 12 appearances and will no doubt be looking to translate that good form to the World Cup in a few weeks' time. Joining me now, friend of the show, NWSL reporter Steph Young, also with The Athletic. Thanks for joining us once again, Steph. How you doing?
Thanks for having me on. Doing well, preparing for the World Cup. The anxiety is building.
Yes, it is. The excitement, the anxiety, everything that comes with it. And of course, we're going to talk all things Canadian here because there are some questions that Canadians even have when it comes to their captain, their leader, their veteran, and that is Christine Sinclair. I mean, her first World Cup was 2003, Steph. I mean, this is somebody who's been there, done that. So inevitably, we always start to ask what kind of role are they going to play the older they get. Having seen her play in NWSL with the Portland Thorns, how have you seen her game evolve?
Well, it's something that I think started under John Herdman, actually, where they kind of both got together and realized, all right, I'm not always going to be as fast as I am. Let's figure this out, dropping her into a deeper role, taking advantage of someone who has great field vision, who understands how the play develops. We've seen that continuing with Portland. She's kind of playing in the midfield, more on the left side now with them, a little more withdrawn, maybe a late arriver trying to tug the strings for her teammates.
All right, well, we're going to see what Bev Priestman will do with Christine Sinclair as far as starter or coming off the bench. I mean, based again on what you've seen in NWSL play, would Sinclair still, does it depend on the competition then? I mean, whether she's a starter or an impact player?
I think it'll definitely depend on the tournament and the games. Canada doesn't have the easiest group, and there's all kinds of factors, right? You want to start strong, you want to set the tone. At the same time, it's a marathon. Sink is 40 years old. Time marches on. And this is a roster that overall has been dealing with a lot of injury issues, as you're aware. So roster management is going to be crucial. I really think there's going to be a lot of factors. I do not envy Bev Priestman having to make judgment calls, juggling all those factors.
Well, let's talk about a factor that can be a big one and possibly score some goals, and that, of course, is Jordan Huitema. How do you think she's developed, and how do you think that can translate to World Cup play?
I think we're seeing some good finishing from her, particularly inside the box. That's absolutely something Canada has needed throughout their history, just someone to be really ruthless in front of goal. And if Sink is going to be farther from the goal, you want additional firepower right in front of the goal in that box. And that's something that we've seen her do for OL Reign. You're right. I think she has something like 6 goals across all competitions so far this season. She can play shifted more right. She can come centrally. So she's a pretty versatile player who can play well off of Sink. And in Seattle for OL Reign has benefited off of, playing in front of their midfield with players like Jess Fishlock.
Let's switch gears just a little bit, though, and talk about the Americans in this upcoming World Cup. The Americans are always a factor in every tournament they're in. But we've also seen other nations closing that gap. Where would you say the Americans rank when it comes to the expectation of winning this all? Are they the favorites? Where would you put the Americans in this World Cup?
I'll never say they're the favorites because that's a jinx waiting to happen. And you mentioned the gap. I think the gap is gone. It's gone between themselves and some of the other top contenders, your Englands, maybe your Germanys, possibly France. They had their own coaching change that maybe I'm optimistic will be good for the players. Not if they have to face the United States, but in general for the health of the game and their team. I think the gap is gone. And I think it's up to the United States now to keep innovating, staying ahead by those incremental little percentages. Are they a favorite? I can't deny it. So yeah, I'll put them up there while also I think there's some wood surfaces around here that I can knock on.
Well, if we're going to believe in that and the jinxes, then I'm going to say this. Canada's going to do poorly. How about that? Is that how it works?
Yeah, absolutely awful.
Just worst ever. Steph, you're awesome, and we always love you taking the time here on the show.
Thanks for having me on.
Best Aussie accent.
Good day, mate.
Good day, mate. Me and my didgeridoo are going down under.
Yeah, me accents no good, not going to do. And you know what, Soccer North fans? We have more coming up. Jessie Fleming, who I promise will not be speaking in an Aussie accent. Canadian midfielder Jessie Fleming made her senior national team debut at just the age of 15, and since then, she's been a force for club team Chelsea. From one strong midfielder to another, former Canadian international Diana Matheson explains exactly what makes Fleming so good.
Jessie Fleming is one of the greatest midfielders Canada has ever seen. The 5'4" attacker was only 15 when she made her national debut, and her impact is undeniable.
Jessie Fleming's a once-in-a-generational player. I think in Canada we're lucky to have a few of those. We've had Sink, we've had Kadisha, we've had Jessie, we've had Ash, but a midfielder like Jessie, I think she was the first one we saw that could do what she could do on the ball, and just her drive behind the scenes to always get better, always learn, always be the best. I think she's gonna keep being world class for another decade.
When it comes to Fleming's natural talents in connecting defensive and offensive lines, it's impossible to just highlight one.
I am totally biased, but midfield is the most important position on the field, and Jessie Fleming in the center of the midfield for Canada is such a gift. She can anchor any team, she'll do the defensive work, she'll do the running, and she's always a threat on the ball. Jessie has always been world class at dribbling. When she's on the ball, she can do whatever she wants with it. I think that's always been the thing I admired most in her, is ability to dribble through teams, but she can pick a pass, she can make runs in behind, she can score goals. And she's got an engine on her. As a midfielder, she can run, those 12, 13 kilometers a game and outlast the opponent. So she's really the full package.
The young Canadian already has 2 Olympic medals and will no doubt continue putting Canadian soccer on the map in a big way.
Jessie, for the rest of her career, is going to be a leader and someone to watch. In pro, I think more titles and more success are in her future. She's in a top club in Europe. If I know Jessie, she wants those Champions League titles, so I'd look for a few of those in her future. In the World Cup, I think you can expect some goals. I think you can expect some assists. I think you can expect some world-class defensive plays. She's a midfielder. She does it all. Jessie has always had an intensity about her. She wants to win. She wants to be the best. And if she's staring you down on the field, I'd be worried.
Joining me now, superstar midfielder Jessie Fleming. Jessie, congratulations on an incredible season with Chelsea, being crowned Super League champions, winning the FA Cup. What did it mean to be a part of that team?
Yeah, no, it was a really good season for us. It's crazy to think that it's, you know, another season has gone by. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's a very good group of players, a very competitive environment, and a very ambitious team. So I think looking back on the season, we're really happy with what we were able to achieve this year. And I do still think there's a bit of unfinished business within the group, and our sights are set on Champions League for next year. But yeah, I think there was a lot to be proud of this season. And I think within the WSL, it was also cool that it was such a competitive race, and there's so many teams vying for that top spot and also the Champions League spot. So I think next year is going to be even more exciting and competitive. So definitely something to look forward to.
Canada is part of a group that's being called the Group of Death. Are you relishing that challenge?
I think looking at our group, you know, we're taking it very seriously. Yeah, I just think when you look at the teams, I think each team kind of presents a different challenge, and there's definitely no easy game in our group. But for me, I also get excited. I think those are the games that are fun to play in, you know, where teams kind of come out and you're relatively evenly matched with the other team. I think it brings out the best in our team, and, you know, hopefully if all goes well and we progress beyond the group stage, then I think we'll be well prepared for whatever comes after the group stage.
The team was so confident going into Tokyo. You walk away with the gold. Can you speak to the confidence heading into this World Cup?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's, you know, always been massive belief within our bubble, within the bubble that, you know, is our team. And like I said, I think from my perspective, to do well at World Cup, you just, I mean, it sounds very simple saying this, but you just need to have 5 really good days. And I do believe that on any given day, our team can beat any team in the world. It's just about kind of finding that form and that consistency at the right time. And yeah, just having a good day and a bit of luck on the right calendar days. So yeah, I do. It sounds that simple to say, but I do think it is that simple. And again, like, I do believe that our team can beat any team in the world on any given day.
Jessie, no secret, Canada hasn't always had success at the World Cups. You've been part of the last 2. What are you hoping is different this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, I'd like us to have a faster start to the tournament. Just trying to find that momentum early, and just a very clear style of play, and kind of owning our identity earlier in the tournament. And then I think when it comes down to it, you know, in elimination stage games, it's just about really fine margins. So I think just focusing on those fine margins and being very, very difficult to beat, and trying to find more creativity on the attack and put the ball in the back of the net. Yeah.
All right, you're going up against your Chelsea teammate, Sam Kerr, who plays for Australia. Spill the beans. Has there been any back and forth before that game?
A little bit, yeah. I think I think when the groups got announced, I think since that point, every time I do something well in training, Sam tells me to leave it and Cobham. So yeah, there's definitely some joking back and forth, but I know Sam, and she takes it very seriously once she starts to play. But before and after the game, I'm sure it'll be all jokes. But no, I think I'm really excited for that game. I know the Aussies have a very good fan base, and I think the atmosphere there will be, yeah, just spectacular. I think it's such a cool opportunity getting to play the host nation, and yeah, I think that's the game I'm most excited for.
Jessie, it's crazy to think that you made your national team debut at the age of 15. You're now going to participate in your 3rd World Cup. You're looking around at all this talent on the Canadian team as well. How have you seen your role change?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think my role has been evolving a bit more throughout the years and trying to maybe push myself in terms of growth a little bit with respect to leadership. I think it's exciting for me. It's not something that has always come supernatural to me. And but yeah, I think it's easy when I kind of have the blueprint for how to lead when I look at players like Desi or so for Sync. And even within that, I do think we have so many good leaders on the team and on the pitch at any given point.
You mentioned Sinclair, and I don't think she'll tell us that this could be her last World Cup, but is there any kind of added pressure knowing that there is the possibility this is her final World Cup?
I think it's something that Sync, won't want to talk about and won't want to be the storyline around our team, which is very emblematic of Sync and her career. There's definitely something about just wanting to cherish the last few years, getting to play with Sync and learning everything we can from her. But she'll play whatever role she can for the team.
Jessie, great having you on. Thanks for taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
But as much as we're excited about the Women's World Cup, the players continue their labor dispute with Canada Soccer. And recently, Interim General Secretary Jason DeVos did an interview where he talked about the finances being in such dire straits that they're actually exploring bankruptcy. For more on Canada Soccer's finances, let's get reaction from Jimmy Brennan, former national team player. And, Jimmy, I can only imagine, as a former player, as someone who's been in that system, still very much involved in the game. What was your reaction?
Yeah, I think there was disappointment, I think, across the board from everybody that's been involved with this game in the country. Back when I was a player, we knew they didn't really have the finances. We didn't have the backing through sponsorships. So we knew the situation. But where we are today, and you look at the women's team and the success that they've had, you look at the men, the success that they're having with sponsors getting involved, you hope that word bankruptcy that was used was a little bit loose and maybe wasn't totally correct, because you then tend to wonder and think, well, how have we made this mistake? How can we be talking about bankruptcy? And somebody's got to be accountable for it, because obviously they haven't budgeted their at the beginning of the year the way that you hope they would have, to make sure that financially we are stable.
You know that without fail, people will start to attack the Canadian Premier League because it falls under the CSB contract. Where are you in your feelings with that, given that you coached York United, you've been part of the CPL, you've been part of that development, you've also seen, what it means to those players. So when you hear people just say, development, it's not good enough, it's not coming from a league, it's only in its 5th season, what's your reaction to that?
Disappointment, because I don't think people really understand the true facts of what this league has done. There's a lot of owners that have invested out of their own pockets to make this work and be successful, to give these young Canadian players resources to fulfill their dreams of being professional footballers and one day representing this country. We needed a domestic league. We need a bigger player pool for our national program to thrive. And you're starting to see already a few players that have come through the CPL that are starting to break into the national team program. So it's doing its job, and it's been hard work by everybody. But the Canadian Premier League isn't budgeting for the CSA. They've got nothing to do with that. Their role is simply now just developing and putting this league together and helping grow this game in the country.
Jason DeVos also mentioning that in September, it doesn't look like they're going to be able to take advantage of that FIFA window and have any games. Are we going backwards now?
You feel that we are really, with so much going on, with our women's, with the Olympic programs, with our men in the World Cup, now our women in the World Cup. There's so much going on, but you tend to feel like, we are going backwards. It's just been a black eye over Canadian soccer for far too long now, and it has to get fixed. And how we're at a stage right now where we can't host games, or we can't be playing international friendlies during a FIFA break I think it blows everybody's mind. And there's a lot of questions that need to be answered.
There was a lot to digest in that article where Jason DeVos spoke, but there was definitely a paragraph there where he talked about, if we're going to be able to fund all these other programs, development programs, youth programs, that the compensation may not be where the players want it to be. Do you feel that the original offer that was tabled, we know last year, and then once again, Canada Soccer made that available in March, this is what we've offered to the players. Do you think that needs to be renegotiated? Do you think that's off the table? That was Jason's way of saying that.
Yeah, of course, you understand what Jason's saying. Jason's more or less saying we can't pay what the initial deal was. And I think a lot of people were taken back from the deal that was offered. And if the players ended up getting that money, then what happens to the youth national team programs? Where are they funded? They're already underfunded. And those are the next players that are going to be representing our country. And if we don't put the resources and time and money into that next generation, our national team program is going to be in an awful lot of trouble.
13 years since you last represented the Maple Leaf. I know you have so much pride in having represented this country, but it's got to still feel frustrating that 13 years later, we're still having this conversation.
No, it is. And I think everybody that's represented this country or been involved in Canadian football, they're all feeling the exact same way. And it should be a time right now where we're celebrating our women going to the World Cup, celebrating our men being at a World Cup. And yeah, you feel like we're not, it's just, we're always constantly getting pulled back. We feel like the reins are getting pulled on us. And me personally, being a proud Canadian that represented this country, I just wanted to see this national team program be successful and be able to provide the resources needed for every single age group under this Canadian Soccer Association.
Well, we hope that they will now start taking the right steps to making that happen. Jimmy, always appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you very much.
Well, you heard Jimmy say it. As much as there's a distraction going on off the pitch, the players have to focus all their energy on the pitch. And right now, the men are taking part in the Gold Cup. Their next group stage game will be on Saturday, July 1st, Canada Day, as they take on Guatemala in Houston, Texas. Kickoff is set for 9:30 p.m. Eastern, 6:30 p.m. for the viewers on the West Coast, and you can catch that game on One Soccer. Oh, okay, Canadian soccer fans, I get it. There's a lot to digest. As much as we are so excited about these national teams, all the news coming out of Canada soccer and the finances, it can really make our heads spin. But here's the bottom line. The players need you to show up. The Canadian women are entering the World Cup as the Olympic champions, and they want to add World Cup hardware to their resume. Speaking of hardware, the men still want their first trophy in 23 years as they continue to compete in the CONCACAF Gold Cup. And we're going to be following all those storylines right here on Soccer North. Be sure to stay with us for the ride.